Well, the only time of the year I'm ever proud to be an American.
In like a jingoistic over the top way, you know?
Like in a Beyonce wearing a red, white, and blue bathing suit / gown / cowboy hat.
Internally, that is the vibe
happening,
I'm bringing into the world. That is what I watched that like mesmerized, like
the Beyonce thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because
absolutely.
she's like in this complicated nation. I'm like, well, gosh, say it a little quieter, babe.
I think the other thing I've really been like, kind of like, whoa, it's blowing my mind is that like the rappers of my youth are now America's elder statesmen. Right? So you have like Snoop and like Flavor Flav and it's like, what's happening? This was Public Enemy. No, and I love it.
It's amazing. And it is a little funny that it's Public Enemy.
No, you know what though? It's like, you know, the part that's kind of, I've been thinking a lot about is like, and I mean, obviously like when I say the rappers of my youth, I mean it. Like I listen to these, these groups in real time. But like I had friends, because of course I grew up like a white girl in the suburbs, whose like parents like were like, you're not allowed to listen to that. You know what I mean? Because of like Al Gore's wife and like all the crazy stuff. There's all this like judgment. I mean, and like, obviously it's like, I know that people are still like, I don't like rap or whatever, but I really feel like it is wild to be like, wait, LL Cool J is being honored at the Kennedy Center, and Method Man is like the most handsome person we all know, like Daddy, and it's just, anyway, I like it. I like it a lot.
If you don't know what we're talking about, we're talking about the Olympics, everyone, here this week on Fated Mates. Welcome to Fated Mates, everyone. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader, critic, and I think a lover of pop culture in ways that, like my,
it makes the Olympics particularly special, okay, so we're gonna listen. This is not gonna be like some of the more recent episodes where we just blather. Like we actually do have a plan. We're gonna recommend some romance novels, but it's really interesting because of the cognitive dissonance of like how we just delight in the Olympics and suddenly we're all Americans. At the same time as we're like, oh my God, how do we mobilize to save America, right? But I do think that what's amazing. So I have a 10-year-old, and this is the first Olympics.
The first one I really remember is my 10-year-old Olympics.
Yeah. This is the first Olympics she's like really aware of what's up. Like right now, while we're recording, she is downstairs watching swim. So, there's this very real sense of like, there's something exciting in the air. And at the same time, there is a real mystery about the Olympics because if we really truly loved all these sports, we would watch them in the off years too. And largely we don't. And so I want to sort of talk about the romance of the Olympics.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Before we talk about romance about the Olympics.
You know what I will say, though? I'm going to say one more thing, which was really funny. Yesterday, I was at a barbecue, about these Olympics, and no one else had watched the opening ceremonies. And I found myself trying to describe it to people who had not watched it. And I sounded like I had fallen out of like a Dada painting, or like, right? Like
if you have not watched the opening of the Olympics, the opening ceremony, it's worth it. You can find it on Peacock and watch the whole thing. And if you would like to partake of our sponsor, Lumi Gummies, while you do that,
you will have, honestly, a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
You'll have a great time. Use the code FATEDMAINS for 30% off your order.
I mean, I was literally like, okay, and then the blood streamers fly out of the window. And they're like, what?
And I was like, Maria Antoinette is holding her own head and singing.
Sure. They're like, what? Or I was trying to explain. At one point I said, so then there's this really cool part with like, the guy person carrying the torch where he goes through the fashion show doing like no-handed cartwheels, and they were like, go back to fashion show.
What's happening? And I will tell you, I was not watching this live, and Jen and Kate were. And so there was they were in the text box that we are all in, sort of recounting it. And there were a couple of moments where I was like, and where are athletes and all this? They're all on boats in the rain. It seems so French, like so French. It's like they ordered up this weather also. Like they were like, let's put all of the greatest athletes in the world on boats in the rain right before they have to perform at their greatest level. So anyway, I hope there was enough hot water in Olympic Village the night.
Also, the other thing about like, I mean, and this is like a very personal experience, but like, you're like, oh yeah, we're going to go on the boat. And then it's terrible. And I was like, these poor people were like jammed on these boats for hours, and they couldn't see Marie Antoinette without her head singing, right? Like, how were they experiencing? Because all that stuff was like clearly.
You know how they were experiencing it? They fucking hated being on those boats in the rain. I mean, even like, think about it. All right, like, first of all, LeBron James is like, I'm LeBron James. Like, I don't need to be on this boat. But I know the job, and I'm going to hold the flag. But, like, imagine this being, like, your first Olympics as, like, a fencer, right? No one knows you. And, like, you're, like, in the middle of the pack at the back of the boat in the pouring down rain. And like, I feel like if it were done in a stadium, like it has been done in the past, like at least you're separate. You're not like, God, they all look so smushed together. And they did seem to be like party barging down the Seine, which is great, America. But also, it wasn't great. Also, there was a threesome in the middle of all of that.
Listen, let's respect the French, Sarah. It was a
And
menage
I
a
think
trois.
that was very fascinating to me. That was a good joke.
You're like all the things. What are the things we're most famous for in the world?
Yeah.
What have we exported everywhere?
Exactly. No, and then somebody said it was like a nod to Truffaut or something. But like, what's amazing about that is literally, I don't think you mentioned it in the chat. And then I went to Threads or something, and there was a video of it. And I was like, what is this unhinged? And then the Peacock, the NBC presenters, when they, at the end of this, like it's three people and they're like climbing stairs and they're like making out and like dancing the whole way. And then they get to the top and they open a door and there's a bedroom. And then they like look at the camera coyly and then close the door. And one of the NBC presenters was like, oh, we're not invited in.
So here's the thing. I don't know if you really clocked this. Two of the presenters were people you know. One, Kelly Clarkson, was the woman.
Oh, that's who it was. It was Kelly Clarkson.
And then, like, their professional guy who does it. And then Peyton Manning, who was offered nothing. And I have to say, even Kelly Clarkson, like, I really felt like, and look, they needed someone who's like, I don't know, like lived in France their entire life to sit down and be like, okay, listen, tell everybody that's Joan of Arc on the white horse on the Seine, not
right. This is Truffaut, not like three weirdos after a party.
Sure, or whatever. And I will say at that part, you could just hear them being like, oh, wow, this is so fun. And I really was like, listen, you guys needed professionals up there.
Later, somebody pointed out that the building where the Marie Antoinette's holding their heads and singing was like the prison where Marie Antoinette was held before they took her head off.
And there was like
body.
None of that really. Like you had to really be going somewhere else for context. So it is wild. I would love to have somebody like go back and, I don't know, give me like the I'm smart about France edit.
Yep. But now, can I just say, this is where I get to have my one nitpicky thing about the Olympics and how it sucks balls. Here's what I hate: that the International Olympic Committee shuts down they deliver, they have like a team of lawyers whose job it is to just like copyright infringe every single video on the internet. And the reality is like, this is 2024 and like we need to loosen the reins on that as like content creators when something is in the zeitgeist at this level. Like, I mean, yesterday I was with my daughter and we were talking about something, I forget what, but like something came up related to the Olympics. And she went to my phone to pull it up and she found the video and then it just said like, this content has been removed. And she was like, I don't understand. Like, why can't I just see like this little video of like Katie Ledecky doing something? And it's like, Katie Ledecky does not care if my 10-year-old daughter watches her like walk across like the pool deck. And yeah, in fact, Katie Ledecky is probably like, let the 10-year-old girls have their
moment. This is how I became. I mean, actually, I watched an interview with her and Leslie Jones yesterday where she talked about like her first Olympics and like kind of tuning into that. So,
and also like this is her day. Like she gets every 4 years, Katie Ledecky gets to be a superstar to girls like my kid and other people too. But
so anyway, I do love watching the Olympics. I do. Yeah, maybe someone just needs to be like, I'm going to record it.
Oh yeah. To read like play it at the third roar of the MGM Lion and then
and then you'll hear me and just like mute whatever. It's funny. But so anyway, it's great. And then at the end, Kelly Clarkson, I will say, obviously was the right person to talk about Celine Dion.
Oh yeah.
But and look, I love Kelly Clarkson as much as the next person. I'm not trying to say, but like that's a big lift, right? Like there was a lot of stuff happening and so I blame NBC, right? They could have had, a team of researchers sitting behind them, feeding them information to their little earpiece. And instead it just kind of felt like a little, I don't know. Anyway, it was a good time, but trying to describe it to a bunch of people who have not seen it could be like a literal like game show. Right? You'd pick which one of these three things actually happened at the opening ceremonies in France. And I'd be like, okay, break dancers on the Seine, right? Like a woman
Amazing.
Singing on the top of the building.
It's just so much.
No-handed cartwheels with the torch. They'd be like, wait, all of those.
So much.
Funny.
But what are we doing today? What do our listeners win today?
So originally, we'd like kicked around a lot of different ideas, like doing like, sports romance, but with like Olympic sports. And then we just like sort of set upon this idea of instead like any book right now that like sort of that has like the vibe, the Paris Olympics in vibes, essentially is what we're going to do, right?
We're going to build you a reading list for when you're not watching the Olympics this time.
Sure. So, for example, it was funny because I had done a little thread on Twitter about like books set in Paris, right? And it's interesting because the first book I thought of, and this is a book you've heard us talk about a lot, is Adriana's A Caribbean Heiress in Paris, right?
Their name is Destiny.
Yeah, it's set during like the Universal exhibition, right? Mm-hmm. It's set during this huge international event in Paris, but in 1889. And
perfect.
The Eiffel Tower figures somewhat prominently because Evan and Luz go up there while it's being built. And like, do they have like a little sex up there? They do. It's great. Sure. And so I was like, oh, it's so funny because that book really captures like the whole idea of like a huge international community gathering in Paris for a big event. Right. Yes. And so it was really funny because I was like, this is actually the best book right now to capture that sense of like promise and being able to run into anyone and being able to just like meet people from across the world and show people what you're good at. Because in this case, she's bringing her family's like rum to the exposition in hopes of finding like a buyer who will buy like a kind of a so he has a family distillery. And so it's like, obviously they're not selling sports, but the whole idea of it is like so perfect if that's like the vibe you want for the Olympics.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Pippa Grant, author of The Secret Hookup. This one's perfect for this week. Like we ordered it up.
We did. Pippa Grant knows what you all need. And that is Duncan Lavoie, the green-eyed, curly-haired, dimple-cheeked, hot-as-lava hockey player, captain of, and I think this is great, the Copper Valley Thrusters.
Your favorite word.
Amazing. A+. Just read it, everybody. He wants his old girlfriend, Addie, back. And she is one of the few female coaches in professional baseball.
Cool.
And so she has been sort of forced by her bosses or whatever to like go into this charity auction. And Duncan realizes that this is his opportunity, right? So he is the captain of this team. And so he's going to pay his ridiculous hockey money to win her in this auction and win her back for real. And the problem is normally she'd like, okay, I'm going to suffer through this, but the entire city starts shipping them. They love this romance between them, and her own bosses catch wind of it and convince her that they should essentially kind of play it up for the publicity because the two teams are about to jointly open a new community center. And so she kind of can't say no to that. So Duncan and Addie are involved in this, all sorts of shenanigans. There's he has to help her out of a too tight gown in a dressing room, being saved by a strong, competent man.
Oh boy.
So good.
Addie doesn't stand a chance, and it is going to be very fun to read. You can read The Secret Hookup right now in print, ebook, audiobook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. And if your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Pippa Grant for sponsoring this week's episode. I saw your thread and then I was like, oh, that's what we should do. It should just be like romance for the Olympic vibe. And whenever anybody talks about books set in Paris, the first book that I think of is Mia Asher's Love Me in the Dark. And now this book, which is available, I just realized this morning, you can get it free on KU. And one of the things that I really love about this book is that it breaks a lot of romance rules. And I have talked about this before in places on episodes where we talk about rule breaking. So the premise is the main character, the heroine, has an abusive husband, and she is trying to get away from him. She's left him, but she has not divorced him, and she is now living in Paris for some amount of time, maybe a month or two. And she spends her time in this cafe / bar / kind of nightclub. And there's a man who is always there and lives upstairs above the cafe. And he is handsome and perfect and everything. And they they do this dance around each other. And then she leans into it, and she decides she's going to have an affair with him. And this is going to be her one shot at thinking about life beyond her wealthy, powerful husband, who she's not sure is going to let her leave her marriage. So there's a little layer of, I don't know that I would call it romantic suspense, but there is a threat, this kind of looming threat of the husband coming back, and this she lets herself in these very quiet moments dream of a different kind of life with this kind of dirtbaggy but very handsome Parisian man. They fuck all over, and then there's this very real sense of it's going to come to an end, much like the Olympics. And then, of course, at the end, the husband comes back, and there's a climactic kind of whole thing. But it's really a great read, and it's a different kind of read. It's not. I think it sticks with me because as you all know, I like it when an author takes a big swing, and this is one of those books for me.
I have, everybody knows I really love a book by Theodora Taylor. I just feel this is a woman who really understands how to serve up the kind of romance that's just going to like, you're going to open it up on page 1 and not want to stop until it's over. And that is like sometimes the vibe I very much want. So, in this case, I'm going to recommend Kayla in Paris. And what happens is the book opens with her essentially sitting in first class. She has planned, or she won, I think is what it is. She won a big trip and was planning to take her boyfriend, who is an American football player. Now, it's really funny because you think like, oh, American football player. Well, it turns out he was kind of like the second string kicker or whatever. And just was like, she kind of figures out she'd invited him to go. And then he like, refuses, essentially, finds out he finds out he was cheating. And so she's just like, I'm going to go by myself. But she was really thinking like, maybe he'll marry me, maybe he'll propose. It's going to be Paris, right? So she is not only like kind of down and out on love, but also very specifically down and out on professional athletes. And so on the second leg of her trip, so the seat that had been empty next to her gets filled by this really handsome guy who like starts flirting with her, and she's kind of like, oh, he's flirting with me. Like, is he flirting with me? And it turns out that he is a professional footballer, a soccer player, like, right?
Nice.
But of course, as an American, she's like, I would, have no idea who this person. She does not realize that he is a professional athlete, right? But of course, remember, I told you, what is she down on? Love and professional athletes. So
Perfect.
So he kind of figures out, like, they agreed, I think, like a one night stand, and then he figures out, like, they both figure out they really are having a great time. Let's do some more. But he knows, or has figured out, how much she hates athletes. And so he basically is like it's like hiding his identity, but he's famous, which I think is always like such a great twist on that, right? Like, I'm famous, but you can't know. So anyway, it's great. And I think it has both like the Paris and the athlete angle, which I thought was really nice.
Nice. So I have one that's like France and a boat.
Perfect.
There's boats. There is a great tweet that went by the other day. I think maybe you sent it to me, and it's how many freaking boats do they have?
Yeah.
And then the joke was the Germans at Normandy, 1945.
The thing that was amazing about that tweet, though, is this is a woman who follows us. She is like the one who, I think she like is the editor of like a history magazine. Like, she is an academic.
Oh yeah, she's like, they had a lot of boats.
Yeah, right. She's a woman who knows. And I was like one of the first people to like retweet it. And Tiffany, who's another one of our followers, actually replied and was like, I'm going to be really sad if this isn't a hit tweet. And I was like, yeah, me too. Because you never know on Twitter these days.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next day I went and it had like 10,000 likes or retweets or whatever. And I was like, oh, that it is a hit tweet. But now you're like, not that kind. But yeah, that really made me laugh. My other really the funniest, best, a very specific Cleveland joke maybe is the one that was like, in France, he's called Le Lebron. Which, I'm sorry, that's a gold medal tweet right there. LeBron. Right? I mean, it was like LELEBRON, just like all jammed together. Perfect. I was like, listen, A+.
Amazing. Okay, but so my book is Broken French by Natasha Boyd. So this book is not set in Paris, but it is set in France. So the heroine gets a job, like she loses her job, and her roommate, for some reason, is able to hook her up as a nanny for a child on a mega yacht in the south of France. Like, because this is exactly how it goes. Listen, romance is amazing. And the reason why is because if any of us lost our jobs, we'd be like, I got to get a job, at the laundromat or whatever. And this lady gets to be a nanny on a mega yacht. But Jen, would you believe this little girl, she has a widowed hot billionaire dad. So onto the boat Josie goes to face down this like broken, emotional mess, just fully walled man. And it's just him and his daughter and her, and his like bodyguards are his closest friends. Because of course they are. And
God, he's literally separated himself from the world. What can you do?
yeah, and literally he's like, this nanny is too hot for me. She should leave this boat. But his daughter loves her, and so it's over for him. Anyway, that's Tasha. It's Natasha Boyd, but she writes that she's written this series as Tasha Boyd, probably because it's hot. I don't know. It's like a sexiness thing. Anyway, he's very, very sexy. He's French, and the book is called Broken French.
I have others that I just want to like sort of name check that we've mentioned a million times. I think obviously Lord of Scoundrels opens in Paris.
Indeed, it does, with the greatest beginning of all time. And I mean, like the greatest interaction with the French police ever written in any text ever.
Or, and I mean, one could argue that there is some shooting. It's an Olympic sport, perhaps.
Sure.
There was a right. So I feel like horses will have been raced. Fine.
Yes, agreed.
There is a really funny photograph of like during the swimming, the men's 4x100 relay, which we won our first gold medal in.
I saw that. You did really.
And it was like the three who had already raced, like sort of like, looking very emotive at the starting blocks, waiting for the fourth guy to come in. And I like tagged it with like a really funny, I thought it was funny. But it was like a very funny, very niche romance joke about Lord of Scoundrels. Like basically like
perfect.
So you could always read that. We have talked many times about, is it Sweet Filthy Boy, the first of the Wild Seasons by Christina Lauren. She goes to Paris. Quite a few people on that thread mentioned The Brightest Star in Paris by Diana Biller. She writes, they're kind of like ghost books, like there's like
a ghost.
I do like a ghost. I'm definitely going to check this one out. And I have not read it, but, and I think it's sort of like a second chance romance. So there's like kind of love stories and ghost stories all like kind of rolled together. And that is in my interest. So I'm going to check out that one. So yeah, that I think wraps up and then of course We'll Never Have Paris by Adrian Anders, which is, if you got trapped in an elevator with a handsome man you couldn't stand, what would you do?
I think you'd figure it out.
I think you would too. So that's book set in France is what I have.
Can we talk about sports?
Yes, let's talk about sports. Okay.
I mean, the obvious beginning for me here is fencing. Because
of course.
Historical.
I watched a little fencing yesterday.
Yeah. Was it sexy fencing?
Actually, they were trying to sell sexy fencing. Apparently, two of our fencers are in a long-term committed relationship. And I was like, oh, that's cute. And they like live together in Kentucky and had to build their own, what's it called where they fence?
I don't know.
Word.
What is it called?
I don't know. The PS or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, so she's like, we had to build our own. And then like sometimes we're fighting on it, but I get really upset and I have to step off. And then like we fight like we're each other and not fencing. And I was like, oh, that's cute. So anyway, NBC, really selling the human interest story there.
I mean, listen, if you have two athletes who are together, that's a whole
just
package.
Like it's a story that's right itself.
That's a 3-minute package, easy.
That, and I also really like to watch like people with their babies with the headphones. Babies with headphones is a really,
because the cheering gets so loud.
Yeah, it's like an unparalleled, I think, part of the sporting experience now. Babies with headphones. Yeah. This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Rose Prindeville, author of Maggie and the Pirate's Son.
So our heroine Maggie spent her entire childhood dreaming of breathtaking adventure and handsome rogues, and she didn't get any of that. She got married young to a terrible man in a disastrous marriage, but things are looking up because she's a widow now, except her father is still committed to matchmaking her, and she's been down this road before and is not interested in doing it again. So she does what any self-respecting romance heroine would do. She boards the nearest ship because the only solution is running away to sea. That's the logical next step.
Good job, Rose.
Things are not as they seem, though, and Maggie finds herself then in the middle of the ocean on a pirate ship. Old Farron's Revenge is run by one of the most brutal pirates that there is, and his son, Bastian, never really intended to inherit his father's like kind of vicious kingdom, but he has come of age on this pirate ship, and he's the only one who can keep his dad calm. So he's stuck on this ship too, and he ends up in the hold and discovers Maggie down there hiding. Oh. Now, anybody with any knowledge of pirate ships knows...
Pirate ship romance, that is, Sarah.
Well, what other pirate ships are there to know about? Knows that women are unlucky on these ships, and they'll get cast overboard to protect the crew. So Bastian helps Maggie disguise herself as a man, and she joins the crew, but these two can't keep their hands off each other. So it's all going to go tits up, as they say. And it's possible both of them are going to walk the plank, but they'll do it together. And isn't that what love is?
Absolutely. So if you are looking for a historical pirate romance that is only one hammock, a fish out of water, and care and comfort from a virgin hero, then Maggie and the Pirate's Son is for you. It is available everywhere books are sold, and it is also available as an audiobook. Thank you to Rose Prendeville for sponsoring this week's episode.
So I just want to shout out some historicals where you can get some fencing excitement. I went looking today for contemporary fencing books, and there seem to be a number of them, but I have not read any of them, so I'm not going to suggest them. But I do want to say that there are some fencing books that we should recommend. Hang on. Eloisa James loves a fencing scene. There's a great one in Duchess by Night, which is my favorite in her Desperate Duchesses series. This is the one where this is also for anybody who loves a heroine pretending to be a hero. She is Harriet, the Duchess of Barrow. And she decides she's a widow, and she decides she's going to go to this very extravagant, sexy, scandalous party. But in order to do so, she obviously can't go as herself. So she goes as, she dresses herself up as a man, and goes dressed as a man to this party, and falls immediately for the man who throws this party. His name is Lord Strange. Name is Destiny because he's into it. If it's available to him, he's into it. Anyway, this is, for me, one of Eloisa's best books, top 3 Eloisa James books for me. There's a great fencing scene. Fencing is in romance novels as often I don't know why we're so drawn to fencing, but we are. And I think it's partially because of the mask and the the idea that it's a reasonable kind of way for us to have a reasonable way for us to have a spar without actually truly putting anybody into danger. And then I would also say that Gillian Hunter's A Bride Unveiled. We've never talked about Gillian Hunter, but this is one of my one of my very favorites of her books. And so this one is there. This is a proper lady, and they have a lifelong friendship. If you are looking for one of those books that just gives you that heart feel of oh my God, they've wanted each other forever. When they were kids, she saw him outside the window of her proper house, and he was I don't know, a ragamuffin. So, I don't think that's the right proper use of that word, but whatever. A little urchin.
Sure. Little.
And she offers to be his friend, and then they become friends as children, and then he disappears. And then he returns as Jen, a sword master, like later when they're older and like he's handsome and everybody loves him and all the women in the town want to fuck him. And she's like, but I'm pretty sure that's like my old friend.
That's awesome.
Good.
I love it.
It's so good. And then, of course, I wrote one that is on all the lists. It's called 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. And it includes very sexy fencing.
Yeah, it does.
And that is a fencing scene where he does not know. He goes to his fencing club and they're fencing and he does not know that she is the person he is fencing with. And then when he finds out, he's very upset. But like in a hot way.
You know, it's funny because we talked about, you know, books actually set at this Olympics. And I have one arrived in the mail from Flatiron Books. Thank you. So this book is called Let the Games Begin.
Oh, yeah, I got that one too.
By Rufario Faith Mazarura. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And in this book, it's actually, it's 2024 Olympics, but it's like Athens, right? And of course, it's not called the Olympics. It's called the Summer Games, but we all get it because back to our previously stated issue, right?
So stupid.
I know. So in this book, Olivia is not an athlete. She is essentially has landed a dream job at the Summer Games as sort of like an intern. And who does she run into but Zeke Moyo, who is the real heartthrob runner of Team Great Britain. So he is looking to claim his title, he thinks, is like the fastest man in the world, right? So, I mean, he's like a track and field guy and he, you know, it's like looking great, but like the big wrench in the works for their kind of romance is that he has had a recent breakup with a celebrated gymnast named Valentina. And so they were like, you know, because like you know, kind of the big headline, famous, beautiful, like Olympics couple, Summer Games couple. And so Olivia and Zeke are sort of, you know, like sparks fly when they're together, like they're like really, you know, doing something. But because of the pressure cooker of this setting, right? Like, and the fact that his ex is there, you know, shenanigans. So this is exciting. I'm excited to read a book that has like a really modern, like this year's Summer Games setting. So that's Let the Games Begin.
For some reason, I felt it was really important to look up to talk about a water polo romance, and now I can't remember why.
Because of Flavor Flav?
Yes, that's why.
I was like, I know why.
I literally have it on my notebook, and it's like water polo, and it has the name of the book, which is Nothing But Trouble. But then I was like, why was I so invested in water polo? It was Flavor Flav. Tell the Flavor Flav story, Jen.
So, okay, you were the one who, so we have a group chat. We have a group chat, everybody, with Sarah and Eric and me and my husband. And, you know, interesting things that we all think we would enjoy together.
Yeah, I was trying to think, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, what is it that like it's like music and pop culture, like
movies.
During the pandemic, we sometimes watched movies together.
Yeah.
Like they were in Chicago and we were in New York and
we'd all like just texted while we were watching
Jen's
something.
Husband loves a fun fact.
Oh yeah. God does he ever. So
in fact, you know, in my phone, he's listed as DH1 because for this is a deep cut for those of us who remember VH1,
pop-up video. Yeah, I mean, that's literally my husband. It's like, honestly, you guys, it's like both so cute and so annoying. So like, he's the type of guy, like, we'll be driving around and a song will come on and he'll be like, who's this? And I'll be like, I don't know. And he's like, take 3 guesses. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, he loves pop culture. He has he's the guy you want on your trivia team, like my husband for these, right? So anyway, we have this group text, and at some point this spring, I guess you sent us the Instagram post. So one of the water polo Olympians posted about how, you know, proud they are to be going, but how much work it is because they have to like raise a lot of their own funds to go. And so out of nowhere, a response to this is from Flavor Flav, who
just in the comments.
Yeah, in the comments. Who's like, don't worry, I got you, girl. Well, I'll cover you. And it was like, wait, what?
And at first everyone was like, What
is this a joke? And somebody
what? This isn't like, these girls really need money, Flav.
yeah, right.
Mr. Flav.
Mr. Flav. That's Mr. Flav. You. Now, it is funny because he will get in and he really, it's Flavor Flav. It's not Flava. And he will correct people. It's really funny. So anyway, Mr. Flav was like, don't worry, I got you covered. And then it turned out that like he in fact did. So he
had his like team call.
And be like, what do you need?
And he has bankrolled the entire American women's water polo team.
And you know what also is like, I mean, clearly.
Which is how all these other rappers have surely gotten involved. Like, he surely called a bunch of his people and was like,
yeah,
you got to get involved. I have questions about Snoop Dogg getting to carry the Olympic flame, but that's a separate thing.
You know what? It's complicated and it's interesting. And my husband also has a lot of things to say about the way like black culture is being like used to sell the Olympics. But you know what? I cannot say anything to that. I'm like, these are my youth.
Flavor Flav, Mr. Flav. The reason why we call him Mr. Flav on the group chat is because one of the water polo players basically was like, Mr. Flav, thanks so much.
So cute. Anyway,
but he put it. I mean, like, he said he's going to do it, and now he's doing it. And he's like, yesterday, did you see he posted a picture of himself with Jill Biden?
Oh yeah, she came up to him and they hugged. There's like a video, and he's there rooting him on. And they gave him, oh my god, like one of their water polo caps, and it has 24 on it. And I was like, do you think that's because there's 24 hours a day, and he's so famous for wearing a clock? Or maybe it's just 2024 and it's a less prosaic reason, but I hope it's because of the clocks. It's awesome.
You hope it's for the clock.
I'm like, I hope it's for the clocks. But you know what else? Here's the other thing I would say is, I think one of the things that's really like, okay, so obviously we are just at a time where we're turning to like noblesse oblige, right? Like, rich people, you have a job in the world, and that is to like use your money to like essentially like, it's the return of whatever that system's called, patronage. Right. And the thing though that's really cool about this, I think, is like, he is so respectful of them as athletes. So even though he's clearly like the hype man for them, there was this amazing post where I think it was when they were doing trials, where he said like, I'll be at the trials and you can come up and get an autograph from me before or after the game, but not during, because that's when they're playing. And I really was like, this is someone who deeply respects like the work that these athletes are doing, which I think is part of why it's so fun and easy to celebrate it. So anyway, it's been terrific. So yeah, water polo. So you have a water polo romance.
I do. So it is not an Olympic set water polo romance, but
don't fly too close to the sun, Sarah. It's fine.
No. It's set at a university. It's Malibu University. The series is Malibu University. And this book is by P. D'Angelico. It's called Nothing But Trouble. And the main character, or the hero, is a water polo player and a pre-med student whose like parents are very wealthy, and he's like big man on campus, you know, like the star of the show. And he like almost hits he does hit the heroin with, or he like nearly hits the heroin with his car, and she like breaks her ankle. And it's like very swollen, and he helps her, and he like insists on like supporting her and like making sure that she, you know, she gets everything she needs to like get to all of her places. But like, she doesn't have, she's like a scholarship student, and now that her leg is, you know, hurt, she can't, you know, play sports. And then he's like, I'm going to take care of everything. You know, if you love a book where the hero is like, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to take care of everything, you're going to be fine, I'm just going to worship you and love you, this is your book. And then they become like friendly, and he sort of friend zones her because he like feels really strongly that like if he ends up having a relationship with, or if he like sleeps with her, then everything's going to go south and he won't be able to like take care of her and protect her. But that all goes poorly. And then it's very hot. It's very short, if I remember correctly. And it just does the job. It's a real like straight up new adult college set sports romance.
Yeah.
But water polo.
But water polo. I think one of the things that's like really interesting to me is how many of the like sports romances or like sort of Olympics romances I can think of are set during the winter games instead of the summer games.
Well, because it's
sexier. Everybody's cold. You gotta snuggle. There's no heat in the Olympic Village, everybody.
Exactly.
So I don't really want to like necessarily, you know, I don't want to recommend those just because I feel like they're not the ones we're like really looking for right now.
Time for that.
You know what I mean?
We'll do that in 2 years.
For that, exactly. So, so yeah, there is I think a Megan Quinn book though where he's a swimmer. It's called Stroked. Fine.
Mm-hmm.
And
all right. Say more.
I mean, listen, I really, it's Megan Quinn. You're going to get what you want, right? So his name is Reese King. He's, along with being an Olympic medalist, he's like an underwear model. You know what I mean? Because, of course, his body is perfect. And I think that his... essentially it's like a fake dating kind of situation, right? So the girl who was like an assistant, the heroine is an assistant, and he like presses her into being his, kind of fake girlfriend because, it's, for reasons like, right, he has to like hide from the press or whatever, or just like is tired of dealing with them. So, I mean, if you love a Megan Quinn book where like everything's just like a little wacky and there's like a bunch of misunderstandings and, then this is probably going to be the book for you. So, her name is Bellini, which is really funny. It took me a while to remember that because I was like, it's funny. Something really funny.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Avon Books, publishers of Elliot Fletcher's Whiskey Business.
Sarah, master distiller Malcolm McCabe has 3 loves in his life. That is whiskey, his dog, and silence.
Yes, I love it.
And so is he going to have anything to do with the return of April Sinclair to the quiet Scottish Isle of Skye? They were friends when they were, he's a shy teenager, and she, though, had big dreams of like making a life for herself and becoming a famous actress. And so she like has taken off, but she's back, right? And April, for her part, right, her career was once flourishing, but now it just seems to be like stuck in the mud, and she wants to go home and figure out where it all went wrong. And she's going to save her family's distillery at the same time. And what she doesn't expect is that Mal, who, used to be like sort of this shy teenager she knew growing up, all of a sudden is like
hot and grumpy.
Also won't talk to her. Is there any better recipe for romance?
There is not. That's what I want. Put it in my veins.
So. He's sure that she's going to leave again and return to the glamorous world, but sparks seem to fly, and it doesn't seem to matter because he can't believe that she would have anything to do with a man like him. But
if you also would like this put in your veins, you can read Whiskey Business right now in print, ebook, audiobook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Thanks to Avon Books and Elliot Fletcher. Can I just put a shout out to Rosalind James? Have you read these rugby romances? I tore through them all, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. It's one of those series. There are 42 of them. I don't know. But the series they're set in New Zealand. They're not super sexy, but they are really competently well done. And each one of them is a different person on the New Zealand rugby team. And I think it's called Escape to New Zealand, the series. And there are not 42, there are 15.
Same energy.
I mean, and I'm looking now, they are literally all free with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. So the first one is called Just This Once, and it's it's the heroine's on a vacation, and she's just in New Zealand for 3 weeks, trying to clear her head from her terrible life. And of course, she meets like the superstar, famous rugby player who just rocks her world for 3 weeks. And then what?
Nalini Singh also writes a rugby book. And again, none of them are actually Olympics related, but all of them are rugby related. And Nalini writes a great book. So there is, there, like the series is called, I think, Play Hard or Hard Play, something like that. But it's actually my favorite of that like kind of world is a book actually called Rock Hard, where he is an ex-rugby player who is now a CEO. The thing about that book, though, is you have to watch your content warnings. She has in the past been a victim of like a stalker and like a home invasion. And it's like it's really truly traumatic for her and kind of what she went through and then her fears about going through it again. So, it's terrific. And on the cover, you can see him holding a rugby ball and I'm not mad about it. So, the Play Hard series, but then in the Rock Kiss series, the Rock Hard book is great.
Jen, just because I know that you are you, I also just want to name check. And this is not necessarily a recommendation, everyone. You have to have really like come through the fire that Jen and I came through. But do you remember Elizabeth Lowell's Too Hot to Handle?
No.
Which is a category. And like a brutal, it's contemporary set, which is like the roughest of Elizabeth Lowell's books are the contemporary set heroes because they are just brutal. He's a cowboy on a ranch somewhere. She is an Olympic diver who had to have like knee surgery and is now recovering because her doctor was like, if you don't have knee surgery, you're going to die. Or like, no, if you don't like stop diving, you might die. I don't like, whatever. So like instead of stopping, but like, romance medicine. This is classic romance medicine. If you don't stop diving, you're going to die. But what you should do instead is go work on a ranch.
Obviously, every romance doctor alive would say that.
So, and if I remember correctly, she like doesn't have a car and she walks like miles to work every day on this like surgically enhanced knee. Listen,
it all makes
Elizabeth Lowell is not a doctor. And this is one of those situations, like, I'm certain, I don't remember this, but I'm certain this hero, like, also thinks that, like, because she was an Olympic sport, she was an Olympian, like, she's definitely had sex with, like, many people from the world over, and, like, he just can't, like, he won't dare love her, but then, of course, like, she gets chased down by somebody, and he, like, can't help himself. She's a beautiful little fool. Anyway, that's Elizabeth Lowell's Too Hot to Handle.
I hate myself, everybody, but I'm also going to be reading this directly.
I wanted to remind you of it because I'm a good friend. If you're out there and you too were forged in our fire, you might enjoy that too. But like, woof, don't head into those climbs if you're not willing to,
She must have had, I've mentioned many times.
She's also probably 18 and he's probably like 45. Like I can't.
And we're back there, so no shame in that game, right? She actually wrote a book called Summer Games, and that's where I like said
Elizabeth
to everybody,
Lowell?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
It's called Remember Summer, but she is an equestrian and he's the bodyguard, right?
Yeah. I mean, this all goes back to what we say all the time, like the category romances of the 80s and early 90s. This one was published, I just looked it up, 1986. So like really everybody only go down this road if you feel stable enough to do this for yourself. But all those category romances of the 80s and early 90s, like the jobs were bananas.
Oh yeah, it's amazing.
Olympic diver, rancher.
Sure. I'm an equestrian. But I mean, I like, honestly, everybody, like, okay, I watched the funniest clip of like Snoop talking to Kevin Hart where he was like, that's called equestrian. Like, you know what I mean? And I was like, the horse.
Explain, is Snoop just like into the Olympics?
Yeah, like I think so. Snoop's into
Is
everything.
he hired to like
He's
be
he's our elder statesman, and he loves America,
Thank
and
you.
we all love the Olympics, and he
Shut up,
brings
Sarah. He loves
that
America.
he loves America, Sarah, and he's bringing that level of love to his Olympics coverage. That's all you need to know.
I have not watched because I am like in revision, but it just feels to me like he's
just like a hype
talking
man.
head
No,
for NBC?
no. He listen, like so. For example, at this relay he showed up at, he sat next to the wife of the guy who's like at the anchoring the relay, Caleb Dressel, I think his name is. And this wife, this is like this beautiful young woman. She's the one who had the baby with the headphones, and Snoop sat next to her, and like they cheered together. I think that's Snoop's job. He wears gold shoes, but he says things that like I would say, which I think is really funny because his level of understanding. I mean, he's bringing the like common man.
When he narrates Planet Earth. This is basically Planet Earth, but make it people.
Yes. So anyway, he's watching.
I'm with you.
He's watching with Kevin Hart, and they're showing
Olympics, Planet Earth, but make it people.
Yeah, they're watching dressage, which is, and he's like, "Oh, I know this one. It's called equestrian, right?" And so the horse.
It's dancing. The horses dance.
And he's like, the horse is crip walking. And I just about fell over in my fucking chair. And I was like, this is what this is. So people like me, if like Little Romance was home, would be like, what is he talking about? And then I would get to explain my youth.
Crip walking.
And so I just want to say, it's a gift to all of us. Generation X, we're in charge now. We're in charge now.
Well,
it happened so fast.
Unfortunately, but we are in charge of the Olympics, it seems.
Yeah, well, vote Kamala in, and we're going to be in charge. So let's go. But yeah.
I saw a tweet the other day that said, I'm not voting for Kamala Harris because she's a woman. I'm voting for her because I'm a woman. But we could also say, like, I'm not voting for her because she's Generation X. I'm voting because I am.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay.
So,
all
right, team.
So I want to transition to my next.
I have a point of order. I don't have a book to reference, but I do want to say that in order to prepare for this episode, I did prepare for this episode. I looked up a list of Olympic sports, and there is flag football at the Olympics.
Crazy.
And that feels bizarre to me.
Yeah.
But also, I couldn't find a romance about flag football. So if you are a writer out there and you are thinking, what is a sport that I, really can't imagine making sexy but want to try, flag football could be for you.
Flag football could be for you. Surfing.
Flag football could be your Chicago Stars.
Yeah. Surfing, of course, I love. And surfing's really interesting this year because...
where are they surfing?
Okay, listen. It's a little awkward and uncomfortable. Like, hello, colonialism. They're surfing in Tahiti, which is French Polynesia.
French colony.
It's like great,
wow,
but also whoa,
cool. But like,
it's cool, yeah.
Wow. Also, like, boy, did you get the better end of that deal? They were not on a boat in the rain.
No, they were in Tahiti.
Like French shit. They were in Tahiti,
going through French shit in a different way. Yeah.
Well,
so and actually, everybody, the wave that they are they're surfing is sort of infamous as being one that can really like. It's called I think the Skull Crusher. If you
fuck you up.
Yeah. So anyway, we were watching yesterday, my husband and I were watching, because of course that's the other great thing about the Olympics is like, you're like commenting like what the fuck you're talking about, right? And I mean, in this case, I have read a bunch of books about surfing, but not really romances, like real books about surfing, everybody. So the real book about surfing I would recommend is called The Wave by Susan Casey. Anyway, that's where I learned about this particular wave. And
there, as somebody who grew up
I think it's called,
near the ocean where, people do surf, although not the Pacific. Like, Pacific Ocean is more known for surfing than the Atlantic. But what I will tell everybody, and this is something for you to carry with you in your future, is if you see people surfing, like actual real waves, and they're actually like able to surf, that area of the ocean is extremely rocky. Don't go swimming there.
Yeah. So we were watching,
if you slip and fall, you could hurt yourself. So be careful.
Well, so anyway, the really funny thing, back to who's hosting this, is they're like, who got sent out? Who got the essentially lucky
Tahiti assignment?
Yeah, right. Colin Jost from Saturday Night Live. And I was like,
Yeah, him and Scarlett Johansson are out there
I
together,
was
no
like,
doubt.
he's not a real reporter. What are we doing? And then I was like, oh, they don't care anymore. Like, and I think that's it. Like, they're just putting people.
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment. And you know what? It is. Although I feel like these athletes deserve better, but you know what?
I mean, here's what I'll say, Jen. I'm sure that it's not just Colin Jost. I'm sure it's Colin Jost and whoever the surfer guy is. Like, there's a surfer sitting next to him.
I would hope so. I mean,
it's like, you know, I mean, I'm sure there's I don't know. I don't know. I would have thought there would be an equestrian person next to Snoop Dogg. So what do I know?
Well, in this particular case, I think they just, anyway, it's great. He was not actually at the equestrian event. I think they just like comment on things they thought were cool.
Yeah.
One last, I completely lost my, okay. So let's go back to vibes. Okay. Pure vibes. Everybody, in Shadow's Claim by Cressley Cole, Prince Drahan, in order to impress his lady love, goes out and beheads all of her enemies and brings them back in a bag.
Yes.
And then
returns. This is the greatest gift a love can provide.
For me, this was, I'm not going to lie, a deeply mediocre book with the greatest scene ever. And
agreed.
I feel like it had big energy of Marie Antoinette's head singing.
Absolutely.
And I just was like, what could we possibly recommend that could be like beheading romance? And then I was like, oh, wait, we've got you covered, everybody. We've got you covered.
Well, to that end, if we're actually just like tagging the weird stuff from the opening ceremony, if you're looking for a really terrific ménage à trois book with people whose bodies are perfection, you're looking for Elle Kennedy's Out of Uniform series.
Oh, yeah. That's what you are looking for, sure.
The first of which is called Hot and Bothered. And it's like Navy SEALs and Green Berets and the women who they love. And those are all MMF. So, like, the swords cross, you will not be unhappy.
Yeah, that's good times. I am trying to think if I had any other like vibe, like Paris vibes from the opening ceremonies, and I'm like kind of running through my like list
you know
of things.
What? I'll also, while we're doing Ménage books, I'll also shout out Rebel Carter, who everybody knows I love. That series is called the Gold Sky series. And several of those, and they are historicals. The first one, Heart and Hand, is a mail order bride book where she is, the heroine is shipped off to Gold Sky. I think it's Montana or in Montana territory, answering a mail order bride, like an ad for a bride in the paper. She gets there and she discovers there are two men, and why not?
Sarah, one of my favorite things is the in the thing was like there was like the fashion show part where they're like walking on the catwalk.
I did not see this, but I believe you.
Okay. Well, this is also
I haven't watched it. I'm still
this is also where the character, the person who had the torch, did like literally like no-handed cartwheels, and I was like, whoa. With the torch. I like literally like watched it and was like, wait, just what happened right there? This is wild. What's the Bella Andre book where she works in fashion? I know, right? Like I love that book.
Take Me. Yes. This is one for the plus size girlies out there. The heroine is a plus sized. Her sister is a fashion designer and she's plus sized, and the sister, she's had the heroine has been like absolutely wildly in love with her best friend's twin brother for their whole life, like since they were kids. And the best friend's brother like is gruff and grumpy and like has never even looked at her. And for some reason they start to work together. She's an interior decorator and he's an architect, maybe. Like they have some reason to be working together. And then he's like, we have to go to Italy. So France adjacent. He's like, we have to go to Italy and I need you to come with me. And her sister fills her suitcase, like empties her suitcase of all the clothes she was planning to bring and fills them with like sexy fashion for curvy ladies. And then they get to Italy and they like fuck all over Italy.
I mean, amazing.
I'm not mad about it.
No, not at all.
So that's fashion adjacent.
Okay. All right. I have one last recommendation for me, which is it has absolutely nothing to do with France, except the title makes me laugh, which is Pardon My Frenchie by Farah Roshan, which actually is, in fact, about a French poodle. But I still think it's funny.
All right.
What happens in this book is, and you guys know I really like Farah Roshan. I love her books. This one is for especially if you are a dog person. Ashanti has a doggy daycare called Barkingham Palace. But she essentially, and she has this French bulldog, and then her French bulldog has a poodle like bestie, and there's like a doggy daycare like cam, and they catch like these two like having like a little Lady and the Tramp moment, and it goes viral. And it goes viral because of course her niece, I think, is like, we're gonna get you more business. You know what I mean? By making this go viral. And so she ends up falling in love with Thad, who is the poodle's like it was his grandmother's, and she's sick and in the hospital, and so he has to take care of her dog for her, and like he hates it. And so I was basically channeling Thad there. I'm not a dog person at all, but the whole idea, like the whole like Pardon My Frenchie is like just like a really funny title, I think, if you're talking about your French bulldog. So there you go.
Amazing.
Nothing at all to do with anything but vibes.
I know we said we weren't recommending Winter Olympics books, but like if you're really looking for like great queer rep in Olympic like themed romance, the Tamsin Parker series, the Snow and Ice Games, is the series for you. And they're like, it's like skiers and skaters and speed skaters, and like it's just delicious. Every book bangs. It's great.
All right. Well, I don't know, Sarah.
What I'm trying to think of, like, is tennis? Do they have tennis?
Oh yeah, there's so much tennis.
You can it's funny because I don't think of tennis as being really like available to us in modern contemporaries. I feel like there are some like categories where people are tennis players from like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Joanna Shupe, though, wrote a tennis book, a historical tennis book. The Heiress Hunt is the heroine, Maddie, is a woman's tennis player in the Gilded Age, and it's great and very sexy, as all Joanna Shupe books are.
Yes. It's funny because like my husband right now is texting me about the Olympics, things he's learning about the Olympics. And he just said
he loves a fun fact.
He loves a fun fact. And you know how you were like, oh, those surfers, they didn't have to be on a boat. Apparently the surfers' Olympic village is a boat. So nobody escapes the boat.
I think we did the job, and
yeah, all your Olympics vibes are coming right to you.
Exactly. Let us know what your favorite sports are, what your favorite Olympic things to watch are. Listen, we talked about that one track and field book, but like this first week is all like, it's all swimming, and next week it's all track and field. So that'll be exciting. And then, yeah. If you are listening to this podcast today, the day we release it, Wednesday, whatever it is, July 31st, then tomorrow, and you are going to be at See Me Lit tomorrow from 2 to 4 at the hotel pool, we're going to be hanging out with other Fated Mates listeners. So come hang out with us.
Perfect.
Maybe we could get you guys to like do some laps.
I'll be doing laps if no one else is there, but
Come hang out. It'll be super fun. Anyway, I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. You can find us online at fatedmates.net, where you can listen to us every Wednesday and read all of the delightful show notes and see lists of all the books that we talked about. Or you can find us on Instagram at Fated Mates Pod, on Threads at Fated Mates Pod, on Blue Sky, on everywhere, in some version of it. Yeah, anywhere people are talking about romance novels, we slide in. If you just love banter and you want to hear us talk more, you can join us on our Discord or on our Patreon. All Patreon subscribers get access to our Discord, where like, I don't know, a couple thousand people are talking about romance novels all the time. And also get a special episode once a month from us. You can do that at fatedmates.net/Patreon. Thank you all so much for being here every Wednesday. It's August, which is crazy.